I'm here to help you fall asleep tonight. Before we begin, like the video, subscribe, and tell me, where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Now, get comfortable, relax, and let the story carry you into the night. The last broadcast, 2017. The red, on air, sign glowed dimly in the dark booth. 24-year-old DJ Mark sat hunched over the console, his headphones crackling faintly. It was a stormy October night, rain lashing against the station's windows. And that was Don't Fear the Reaper by Blue Oyster Cult. You're listening to KDRX 102.4, bringing you the night and the storm. Stay safe out there, folks. Mark clicked off the mic, rubbed his eyes. The clock ticked over to 2:03 a.m. Thunder boomed. Then, silence. The auto playlist failed. No music, no ads, just dead air. Mark frowned. He tapped keys. The system was frozen. Suddenly, through the static of his headphones, came a voice. Whispering, "Don't leave, it's here." Mark froze. The room felt colder. He yanked off his headphones. The whispering continued, without them. Mark grabbed the desk phone, hands trembling, and called the station's technician. No signal. The storm had killed the lines. The studio phone rang. Mark jumped. He hesitated, then picked up. "Hello, KDRX. Who's calling?" A woman's voice, ragged and panicked. "You have to keep broadcasting. Don't stop the signal. It's coming through the dark." A deafening screech cut her off. The lights flickered. The smell of ozone filled the booth. Outside the glass window, the hallway was dark. Something moved there, a shape just beyond the reach of light. Mark stood, heart pounding. He stared through the glass. The shape shifted, a figure, tall, gaunt, with something wrong about its face. It scraped along the walls, fingers or claws trailing. Mark fumbled to get the emergency CD player working. Static hissed from the speakers. The figure stopped at the door to the booth. The knob rattled. Mark backed away. The studio monitors crackled. The same whispering voice. "Don't stop the music. Don't stop the music." Mark slammed the play button. Old jazz filled the air. The knob stopped turning. The figure faded back into the shadows. Desperate, Mark ran to the dusty archives room. Old vinyls and tapes lined the shelves. He grabbed a crate at random, breath shallow, ears straining for footsteps. Every few seconds the storm outside gave a flash of lightning, and in those brief moments, Mark saw shapes at the edges of the windows. Watching, waiting, he found a tape labeled Continuous Tone 1983. He didn't care what it was. Back in the booth, he jammed it into the reel-to-reel player. A long, droning hum filled the airwaves. The station's temperature seemed to rise. The whispering stopped. 2:18 a.m. Mark sat frozen, listening to the hum, waiting. A second voice crackled through. "You're doing good, Mark. Just keep the tone going. Don't let it get in." Mark grabbed the mic. "Who are you? What is it?" Silence. Then, "It feeds on silence. That's how it enters our world." The old engineers knew. That's why the station can't ever go dark. A loud bang. The booth door cracked at the hinges. Mark screamed into the mic, "Somebody help." The hum faltered. The reel jammed. The room went dead quiet. Mark stared at the door. It swung open, slow, creaking. The thing stepped in. Its skin was like burned paper. Its eyes were hollow. It opened its mouth. No sound came out, but Mark felt his ears bleed. In one last act of desperation, Mark grabbed the mic and began to sing, off-key, frantic, anything to break the silence. The creature shrieked, recoiled, and dissolved into ash. The power returned. The auto playlist kicked in. 3 a.m. The storm eased. The next morning, the station manager found Mark slumped at the console, still humming softly to himself, eyes wide and unblinking. No one ever spoke of that night again. But at KDRX 102.4, the rule became clear. Never let the air go dead. Mark sat in the break room, staring at the flickering fluorescent light above. His hands trembled as he clutched a cup of cold coffee. Outside, dawn's first light filtered through the storm-streaked windows, but the station still felt choked by the night's terror. Then, a knock, not at the front entrance. From inside, from the hallway that led to the old transmitter room. Mark froze. His pulse thundered in his ears. Slowly, he rose, the chair scraping softly against the floor. "Hello?" he called, voice barely above a whisper. The door creaked open. A man stood there, late 50s, gaunt, his face lined like cracked earth. He wore a dusty field jacket and an old FCC badge that swung from his neck. His eyes were bloodshot, but sharp. "You kept the signal going," the man said. His voice was low, urgent. Mark swallowed hard. Who are you? What was that thing? The man glanced around the room, as if the walls themselves might be listening. That storm didn't bring it. The silence did. He stepped inside and shut the door quietly. They call it the quiet man. Been hunting stations like this since radio began. That's why we never let the air go dead. Not once. Not ever. Mark stared at him. Why didn't anyone tell me? The man smiled grimly. Because most don't survive the first visit. But you did. Now you're part of this. A low hum filled the air again as the auto playlist looped back to the top. The man's expression darkened. You'll hear more knocks. More voices. The quiet man don't give up easy. If you want to stay alive, kid, never stop the broadcast. The FCC man was gone by sunrise. No one saw him leave. Mark wasn't sure if he'd imagined the visit, or wished he had. The station seemed normal now. The hum of machines, the faint music, the soft static in his headphones. But Mark felt watched. He slumped in the booth chair, exhausted. His eyelids drooped. Then, silence. His eyes shot open. The station was dead again. No music, no hum, no static. He stared at the console. The system was fine. The meters danced, showing output. But no sound filled the air. Something had cut the signal between the station and the transmitter. A cold draft swept the room. Mark saw his breath fog. He turned to the window. There, in the outer office, the quiet man. Closer this time, its mouth stretched open, wider than humanly possible. Its hollow eyes locked on Mark's. Its skin cracked and flaked like burnt paper. Mark lunged for the emergency mic. KDRX 102.4, if anyone's listening, we've lost the signal. The creature raised one long arm and placed its hand against the glass. A spiderweb of cracks spread across the window. Mark grabbed a vinyl off the shelf, anything. He forced it onto the turntable. The needle dropped, but no sound came out. The quiet man grinned. Mark's mind raced. The main transmitter was dead, but deep in the archives, behind a rusted metal door, was the emergency transmitter. He bolted from the booth. The quiet man's cracked face pressed against the broken window as Mark fled. Down the hall, his footsteps echoed like drumbeats. He reached the storage room, yanked open the door. Dust and mildew choked the air. There, in the corner, an old transmitter the size of a mini fridge. Its power light glowed faintly. Mark's hands shook as he fumbled with the switches. Come on, come on. Behind him, footsteps. Slow, deliberate. The quiet man was inside now. Mark hit the override. The transmitter whined to life, buzzing through ancient wires. He grabbed an old handheld mic, voice cracking as he shouted, KDRX emergency, stay tuned, stay awake, stay alive. The transmitter blasted out the words, distorted and raw, but loud. The building seemed to shudder. The quiet man stopped. It hissed, smoke rising from its skin. Mark kept talking, filling the air with sound, nonsense, station ID, the weather, anything. The thing let out a shriek that rattled the walls, and faded, like ash on the wind. The signal held. The transmitter hummed. Mark sank to his knees, heart hammering. He knew it wasn't over. The quiet man would come again. But for now, the air was alive. Mark sat alone in the glow of the emergency transmitter, his voice raw from shouting. Outside, the storm clouds were gone, but the sky remained dark, as if dawn refused to come. He heard footsteps again, not heavy like the quiet man. Lighter, hesitant. From the shadows emerged the same man, the one with the FCC badge. His eyes looked sunken, older than before. Mark's throat was dry. It's gone. I drove it back. I kept the air alive. The man nodded slowly. You did. And now you've got a choice, Mark. Mark blinked. Choice? The man stepped closer, voice low. You stay here. Keep the signal alive. Keep them out, or you leave. But the next DJ? They won't know. And the quiet man, it'll come right back. Stronger. Mark stared at the transmitter, the cracked walls, the empty booth. I can't stay here forever. The man's smile was bitter. That's what I said, 30 years ago. Mark looked closer. The man's skin, gray, paper thin, like the creature's. His badge? The name had faded. The man turned to leave, his form flickering like static. It's a lonely job, kid. But somebody's gotta keep talking. Then, he was gone. The emergency transmitter hummed on. The clock ticked to 4:03 a.m. Mark reached for the mic. His voice broke the silence once more. KDRX 102.4, still here. Night fell again over KDRX. Mark hadn't left the station. He didn't dare. The emergency transmitter's hum was now a constant companion, like a heartbeat in the walls. The main console flickered back to life, but Mark didn't trust it. He stuck to the old equipment, the one thing the quiet man seemed to fear. At 1:58 a.m., a new sound cut through the static, a soft melody, like a music box, drifting through the monitors. Mark froze. He hadn't played anything. The melody grew louder, sweeter, until he realized it wasn't coming from the speakers. It was coming from inside the walls. Then, a voice, a girl's voice, soft, sing-song. "Come out, Mark, come play in the quiet." Mark's blood turned cold. He grabbed the mic, his voice shaking. KDRX 102.4, we're still on the air, still. The studio lights dimmed, the door to the booth creaked open by itself. Out in the dark hall, a shape stood, small, like a child. A doll's head tilted at him from the shadows, its glass eyes glinting. The girl's voice sang on, and the walls seemed to close in, the station shrinking around him. Mark cranked the volume on the transmitter, filled the airwaves with a deafening burst of static and white noise. The melody faltered, the shape in the hall flickered, then vanished like smoke. Mark slumped over the console, heart racing. He realized with horror, the quiet man wasn't the only one trying to get in. Mark's hands trembled as he flipped through the dusty station logs in the archive room. Old newspaper clippings, faded photographs, and brittle pages told a grim story. Years ago, before KDRX went live, a young girl vanished inside the building during a late-night broadcast. Her voice was said to haunt the station ever since. The quiet man was older, but the girl, she was different. She wasn't a creature of silence. She was a trap. Mark realized the soft melody wasn't just a lure, it was a prison. His eyes darted to the clock, 3 a.m., the witching hour. Back in the booth, the lights flickered violently. The radio waves warped and twisted, voices overlapping, crying out. Mark gripped the mic tight, sweat pouring down his face. KDRX 102.4, this is your final warning, keep the signal alive, or the quiet will consume us all. The emergency transmitter shuddered as the room filled with a deafening, otherworldly chorus, a chorus of lost voices, begging, screaming, silent. The studio door slammed shut behind him. Mark knew. This was the last hour. The booth was a cage of static and shadows. Mark's breath came in ragged gasps as the voices grew louder, an unbearable cacophony of the lost. The emergency transmitter flickered, threatening to die. Without it, the silence would take him. Suddenly, the girl's voice pierced the chaos, clear, fragile, pleading. "Help me, set me free?" Mark's hands flew over the controls. If he could broadcast her voice out into the world, maybe she could move on. He grabbed the mic and spoke through the storm of noise. "This is KDRX 102.4. To anyone listening, release the silence. Set the voices free." He hit the broadcast button and played the recording of the girl's lullaby through the speakers. The static wavered, the shadows recoiled, the quiet man screamed, a hollow, tortured sound, and began to dissolve into the air, like smoke on the wind. The studio flooded with light. The oppressive weight lifted. Mark collapsed, exhausted, but alive. The dawn broke over the station, silent, peaceful, for the first time in years. Morning sun bathed KDRX in pale gold. Mark sat on the station's front steps, staring out at the quiet town beyond the fields. The nightmare was over, or so he thought. The emergency transmitter was silent now, powered down. The airwaves were empty except for birdsong and the soft hum of morning life. But Mark felt it, that hunger in the silence. The girl's voice hadn't been freed. It had only lured something deeper. He felt it beneath the stillness, like a heartbeat underground. From behind him, the old FCC man's voice echoed in memory. "It don't stop. Not really. You either keep talking, or you let the quiet win." Mark stood, staring at the rusting radio tower that rose like a skeleton against the brightening sky. He walked back inside, switched on the mic, and spoke. KDRX 102.4, still here. Still watching, still waiting, and as his voice filled the dead frequency, the shadows beneath the station seemed to retreat, for now. Mark understood his duty. He would never leave, because the silence is always hungry.